Hello, hello. I have a very special guest with me today for my podcast, and so I'm looking forward to having this conversation with my mom, Susan Hintz. Today's devotion is titled Love Does Not Clang, and we were on February 6th, and if you're following the days, it's day 37, and the morning rinse today is 1 Corinthians 11 through 13. So if you can go ahead and read that and come back, that would be great. And we're going to have a conversation with my mom and talk about this devotion. Okay, so the featured verse is 1 Corinthians 13:1. If I speak with tongues of men and angels, but do not have love, I have become a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. So, as you know, as I've said before, this is my mom. And just full disclosure, we are on vacation. We are in California right now, in the backyard of our Airbnb. So the setting is not perfect, and we're out here in the morning. It's a little chilly, and we just thought, well, let's find at least a place where we can go and have some sunshine. And so we're sitting in the back of the Airbnb yard. And so if you are watching this on video, you're probably wondering, like, where are they at? Well, that's where we're at. So you might see the trash cans in the backyard or something of that nature, but here we are. So I wanted my mom to come on today and help me with this conversation because I have a few fun little stories that deal with today's devotion. So as a child, I received my mom's clarinet. And she played the clarinet when you were little. When did you start playing?
I probably started in 4th grade, as you did.
Okay.
But there came a time when it needed to be passed on.
So we were a very musical family, so all of us played at least 2 instruments. And when school band started and stuff, it was almost like a assumption per se that we would join the band. And so my oldest brother, received my dad's saxophone, and so it kind of made sense that I received your clarinet, and so that is what happened. So in the 4th grade as well, so you started in the 4th grade, I started in the 4th grade, I began practicing my clarinet.
Yes.
And she knows. I remember practicing in my bedroom, and then I learned to play in the bedroom starting at the 4th grade, and I continued on through high school. Did you play through high school as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Were you in the marching band?
Part of high school. My last year, I did not participate in the marching band, but I would say one thing about playing the clarinet, you have to have the perfect pucker. And over the years, I quit playing the clarinet and I lost my pucker.
You lost your pucker?
If I would pick it up today, and I do still have one, my husband bought me another one later, but I do not still have the right pucker.
I don't think I have the right pucker either. So if you are watching this and you play the clarinet and you have the right pucker, good for you, especially if you are an adult. So I did not. I think I've lost the pucker too. But I remember practicing pretty much every single day in my bedroom. Like we had like a set amount of time that we were supposed to practice, and I would sit on my bed and I had this musical stand up and it was in front of my bed, and I'd pucker and blow into that mouthpiece initially, and I remember the sound was not very good.
Well, nobody has the right sound at first. Our son didn't have the right sound on the saxophone, and that took practice to get it right, and you had to practice a lot to get the right sound on the clarinet. And then your sister also played the clarinet, and she had to do that same practice to get the right pucker, the right sound.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point in that it takes practice. It takes practice to become good and skilled at it. And I remember practicing for years on that. And it took years to get even near perfect with that, and I'm sure that probably my pucker wasn't the greatest, but it was definitely an intentional practice of something that we learned. The same with our second instrument, which mine was the piano. I played on that as well, and I remember band being literally one of my favorite classes that it became. It came to be one of my favorite classes, and I remember I worked really hard, and I held the spot of first chair almost from when they started doing chairs, which I think was initially in the 4th grade, was it, or in the 6th grade?
You know, I don't remember that part of it.
It might have been 6th grade, but
Yeah,
I
it might
remember
have been.
I remember holding the first chair spot all the way through the rest of my grade school onto middle school, and there was always this other guy, Maurice Fanti is his name, and he and I would constantly be competing back and forth, especially in middle school. And then when it came high school, it was a whole new ball game. I was not the first chair in high school anymore, but my love for band continued to grow, and I earned that spot of, and it was just my favorite class. And each time, it was funny because each time that I would enter into the classroom and go to my chair, I remember grabbing my clarinet and my case and warming up. And when you walk into a band room, you guys can probably understand what that sounds like. I mean,
all of them warming up at the same time at different levels of the I want to say alphabet, but that's not right. Different
on
levels
the notes
of notes,
and
right?
Tones and
low instruments, higher instruments, and I always thought it would be so neat to play the flute, and the flute and the clarinet do not work the same way.
Your pucker's different.
Right. The flute, you blow over the instrument. The clarinet, you blow into it. So somebody gave us a flute in later years, and I thought I'd just be able to pick it up and play it. Wrong was I. It gave me a headache to try to play it. So I had to give that up.
You had to give it up. Yeah, I've tried the flute as well. Well, I remember when we were walking into the class and just hearing I can almost hear it now, where you're listening to all the band members practicing. It's like this constant noise of nothingness, but a lot of band members. And it almost can become a little deafening when you're hearing all of them so loud. You've got tubas, flutes, trumpets, drums, saxophones, clarinets, all of the baritones, the whole bit, and we're all, standing, sitting, everybody's warming up in that moment. And then the band director walks into the room, stands up onto his stand, and raises his batons, and everybody stops. Like, all of the blaring stops, and the class would then become noiseless. It became all of a sudden this big, huge clanging noise, and then all of a sudden silence, in a matter of a few seconds, basically. And he was literally about ready to conduct us into music playing that was written for beauty and for, all of the, concert air, I guess, or whatever. And I guess what were you going to say? Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking, Paul must have had a vision of being in a band room or something, because he called it a clanging noise, and that's exactly what it was to go into that band room, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a clanging noise. It wasn't a real pleasant noise. It was a clanging noise, and so that's what he must have meant by that clanging noise.
Well, they had musicians back then, so maybe he knew exactly what a band room would sound like and look like in our modern day scenario. Yeah. Well, so today's featured verse is exactly what Paul was talking about, the
Right.
clanging. And so this featured verse is really cool because 1 Corinthians 13 is known as
The love chapter.
the love chapter. So it's known as the love chapter. And one of the things that's really surprising about this chapter is that it does not begin the descriptions of describing what love is. You know, a lot of times we want to know what is love. Well, we know God is love, and we look at the characteristics of what God is and how he is the being of love, because that is who he is. But 1 Corinthians 13 actually starts out with something different. It's really describing what love is not. You know, and so we can learn a lot from what love is by learning what it is not. And love is not the sound of students squeaking and squealing and playing all these unsynchronized notes and walking into a band room. That's not what love is. Love doesn't sound noisy or strange or that clanging cymbal, right?
Right. Love, there's perfect love from God, isn't there? And that is what we would all want. Nobody wants imperfect love, for sure. We want the perfect love from God, and he's the only one that can give us that. Just like the, going back to the pucker, you got to have the perfect pucker to be able to play that clarinet perfectly. But God can give us the perfect love that we need for our relationships that we have in life, and we all need that perfect love for whatever relationship, whether it's husband and wife, just friendships, children, whatever. And it's really important to have that perfect love.
Yeah, I actually have one of my other devotionals. It's named Imperfect Love. It's coming up. Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, you're right. We want so much to have the perfect love, but it's a lifetime. I mean, a lifetime of learning. I mean, I'm sure that when you were in the kitchen cooking and you heard me practicing in my bedroom with all of the squeakiness and all of the imperfections of it, you know, I'm sure it probably made you chuckle a little bit. I mean, but you probably at some point tuned it out even too. I mean, I probably would have. Yeah. So, I mean, when we're talking about that love and what love is not, which is how 1 Corinthians 13 starts, we can learn what love is by looking at the exact opposite. And so we have to be really careful that the things that we say, the sour words that come across, all of that are at least pleasant instead of really, you know, a clanging noise sound or hurtful. And yet it takes practice. We don't go through our life, you know, trying to become perfect with love without practicing and without, you know, doing it. And I think that that's what Paul was saying is, you guys, love is not this band room of all kinds of noise and disorganization and just craziness. It's actually order and beauty, and yet it can be firm. But when I say love is not hurtful words, that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't in love correct other people or tell people, you know, hey, this is probably a little off here, you know.
There are times when we say or do something to someone that as soon as we do that or say that, it's like God puts up a stop sign and tells us, no, that is not the way to handle that. That is not the way to respond to that person. And other times, sometimes it will be a day or two later, or even that longer than that. But in any case, if at all possible, we need to make things right. We need to go to that person or call that person and apologize and tell them, I realize that the way I handled that situation, whenever it was not right. And will you forgive me? So many people forget that they need to get forgiveness, and we need to do that both for your sake and for the other person's sake. We shouldn't just leave it out there to correct itself, because it won't happen. It won't happen to just leave it out there wrong. So we need to take care of that.
Yeah. So that leads me to actually today's challenge, to dig deeper. And so if you have said anything at all, if it was in the wrong, hateful tone, or you've done anything that could have been, hurtful to someone that maybe was not done in the spirit of love, you may have very well needed to say, you may have very well needed to say what you said, but was it done in a way that God wanted you to say it, so that your message was not clanging cymbals like what Paul was saying that potentially it could be if it's not done in love. Right. If we say things in love and they are firm, then most likely you've covered all of those things.
Right.
If you say something in love, even though the person that's receiving what you have to say isn't receiving it very well, but you are coming with a heart of love and understanding, then most likely you're probably supposed to say what you had to say. And sometimes it can be the receiver that is not ready to receive it, and yet if you were supposed to say it, then you were supposed to say it. And so always making sure that you're bathed in that love, because the clangingness and the cymbalness sounds can be hurtful to the ears, right? So,
right.
Yeah. So if you had if you're needing to say something, or if you've said something in the past that actually, when you're thinking about it, was probably a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, then your challenge for today is maybe try and make it right with that person. And if it's an apology that is needed, or something that you need to do in order to make it right, then go do that. That's your challenge, to dig deeper. And if you're good and everything is done well, then keep meditating on this verse that we have today, because that knowing what love is also understanding what love is not. And that, I think, can help us to talk to people better, and can help us to get staying on the right path, I guess, for what love truly is. And so once you do that challenge and you just really dig deep and ask yourself, if there's anything at all that you've said that may be a little off, an apology is needed, great. If maybe somebody said something to you that was clangy, I would challenge you to just understand maybe where they're coming from, and maybe they need to learn to decipher what they're saying. But I think that if we're all in a matter of growth and understanding of what Paul was saying, it'll definitely better our relationships, for sure.
Right.
And then we'll grow out of the squeaky clarinet clanging that was me in the 4th grade. I don't know when I even started. It took years to quit squeaking. I'm sure of that, right?
Right. When I started, I practiced upstairs, and my mom was downstairs, so she didn't have that privilege of hearing me practice as much as I did.
Well, even like when you go and watch a concert, like when you were in the audience and the band was out on the stage and the curtain is closed, you as parents could hear us doing all the warming up and everything, and there was, again, lots of squeaks and noises and all that kind of stuff until we got a little bit better. So yeah, what a really good insight that Paul, I think, was talking about in that. And I just thought that it would be really fun to have my mom come on here and talk about my clarinet playing and any stories and whatever that, came about with this devotion, because it's so important to just have the understanding of what Paul was talking about. And so when you are reflecting tonight and looking at, the challenge of the day, I want you to pull out your journal and write down if you had a conversation with the person that maybe you said something hurtful to. Write that conversation down, write down how it went, and did you learn anything from the conversation? Did you learn anything from what God was speaking to you about? And if you had to apologize for sounding clangy or saying something that was in essence evil, then, and how did your apology go? Like, write it down, and reflect on your growth, because this is how we bring to life Scripture, and how we practice Scripture, and how we bring it to life. And so, Mom, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, this isn't about playing the clarinet, but this is a fond memory that I have, and I didn't clear this with you to put it on, but when I was growing up, one of my fondest memories was when my sister would make herself a dress. She was a wonderful seamstress and still is. She would have enough fabric to make me one to match. And so I decided that when I got married and had kids, if I had 2 girls, I was going to dress them alike, which I did. Well, Anita and her sister were very happy with that until they reached a certain age. And I can still remember the day they came to me and said, "Mom," something like, "We love the dresses you've made us, but can we have our own from now on? Maybe you can make us different colors, and still make them, but we want our own from now on." So, everybody has their own thing that they enjoy. Our son played saxophone, the girls played clarinets, which was fine. Some people like homemade clothes, some people don't. And you have to appreciate what people enjoy and go with the flow. So I went with the flow, and it's been a fun life. So
and now you make clothes for your grandbabies.
Yes, I have. I haven't,
and great grandbabies.
I haven't done as much for the grandchildren as I did for the kids, but I even made our son some clothes, and he never really told me how he felt about the polyester suit I made him one year for Easter, but I did make him a suit to match his sister's dresses.
I remember that. It was blue and white.
Yes.
Blue and white, and we all looked the same. Yes, that was funny.
Yeah.
So I guess we all graduate, whether it's playing an instrument, or we graduate from wanting to dress like a twin as a kid, or we graduate even in how we tell people loving things.
Right.
We all graduate.
Right,
we all graduate into a new level. And I think that was, circle back, that's exactly what Paul wanted.
Right. Paul wanted us to be individuals, but he still wanted us to stay on the right track. And, that's part of life, is staying on the right track and staying according to Scripture as much as possible, and letting that Scripture guide us through life. And it's been a joy to my husband and me to read the Bible through several times, and there's actually a woman at our church that we attend whose husband is deceased now, but he read the Bible through 83 times while he was alive. And I don't remember how old he was when he passed away, but to me that's amazing to have that kind of a legend, you know,
Wow.
for his wife to be able to say, oh, he read the Bible through 83 times.
Yeah. That's
Amazing.
That is amazing, yeah. Well, on that note, if you are watching this video and you have not yet purchased my devotional called Rinse, Reflect, Repeat to help you read the Bible through in a year, and we're doing it alphabetically, and this just happens to be in Corinthians. And so go ahead, look at the show notes below, or you can go to AnitaCordell.com and order your own book along with the companion journal to help you gain those truths in the Bible. And so thanks, Mom, for coming today and being my special guest and talking about this special verse and this special devotion. So thank you.
You're welcome.
AKA Susan Hintz, my mother. Until tomorrow, you want to say it with me? Keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless you.
Bless you.